In an effort to prevent suicides, veterans in crisis can go at no cost to any VA or non-VA health or emergency care facility for treatment. Veterans do not need to be enrolled in the VA system to use this benefit. And if you're a veteran in crisis or concerned about one who is, contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 988 to receive 24/7 confidential support. We now take another look at an American who was a fugitive, aided by friends in Rhode Island in a daring and dangerous escape. He went from being on the run to becoming one of the most influential Americans of the 19th century. Tonight, how the people of our community played a pivotal role in the life of an abolitionist as he took his first steps to freedom.
Throughout his whole life, from the time that he really gains freedom, he works constantly for freedom, and for freedom for his brothers and sisters, meaning the African American community. He spoke out for women. At one point in time, he's in England, and how important it is for the English to take their foot off the neck of the Irish. So he was somebody who worked all the time for equality.
That early civil rights activist was born a Southern slave. Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey later changed his name to Frederick Douglass to elude capture. He escaped bondage, arriving in Newport in 1838. Historian Lee Blake explains why he couldn't stay there.
Because Newport, Rhode Island, is a slave state. And one thing that people really forget is how involved Rhode Island was in the slave trade. Many of the slave ships that came to the United States came into Rhode Island.
But Douglass and his new wife, Anna Murray Douglass, do find safe harbor, however briefly, in Newport with the free black family of Isaac Rice. The Rice homestead still stands on the corner of Thomas and William Streets and was a station on the Underground Railroad. The Douglasses were then whisked by stagecoach here to New Bedford.
From that corner down about 4 blocks is all Abolition Row.
Blake, who is president of the New Bedford Historical Society, says it is to this Whaling City neighborhood, now the historic district Abolition Row, that Douglass is sent. He has his first taste of life as a free man in the home of Nathan and Polly Johnson. What role did this very house that we're sitting in have in shaping Frederick Douglass's life?
Nathan and Polly Johnson, who were African American entrepreneurs, were part of the Underground Railroad. So this is an Underground Railroad site, and when Anna and Frederick come here, they've just been married just 3 or 4 days, but Frederick was 20 years old. So we're so used to seeing Frederick Douglass as an elder statesman, we forget that he had a foundation story. And this house is part of the foundation story.
The Johnsons' house sits side by side with those of Quaker families, whose meeting house is also on the street. Anti-slavery Quakers were active in the city's whaling trade and employed many African Americans.
New Bedford is a really unique place at that time. New Bedford is a bustling whaling port, but it's also a place with a large free black population. Massachusetts ends slavery in 1783. So people here are free and are able to go about their business as citizens.
Douglass finds work on the docks in New Bedford and marvels at the opportunity in the seaport town.
He's able to vote here. Voting in New Bedford was not segregated. He paid his poll tax, $1.50, and in the 1840s he's voting. New Bedford African Americans were running people for elections, for different posts and positions. So the New Bedford teaches him the possibility and the hope of what freedom might really look like if people were equal.
Douglass is also able to attend church and act as a lay minister, where he learns he needs to speak up.
He talks about getting the sacrament in one of the churches, where he's sitting in the back pew, he gets the sacraments last, and he just can't believe it. And he writes about that, and he writes about how Christians were hypocritical.
So as good as it was here, it wasn't perfect.
Right. He's also able to write and put little editorials in the paper. So he develops a voice here which he wouldn't have developed anywhere else.
And that voice brings an invitation to speak in Nantucket, a transformational moment when the audience meets the eloquent, literate, self-educated Douglass.
He's very hesitant, but he speaks and talks about his life as an enslaved person. But at that time, many of the abolitionists had never really met a slave. So Douglass becomes really important because he can communicate that message of what it was like to be enslaved. He would talk about his relationship with his mother, who he only saw a couple of times his whole life, and the beatings that he had.
Blake says Douglass not only gave a powerful first-person voice to the evils of slavery, he gave a face, an imposing, intellectually gifted leader.
Douglass had a whole rationale for that. Douglass wrote essays about photography. He thought photography was so important that photography was going to be able to show white Americans that the humanity of black people was the same as their humanity. But he also was looking at the idea that at the time, white people were making sure that there were stereotypes of black people, that they would do pictures that were demeaning, that depicted them as less intelligent. So he really was pushing the whole idea that that wasn't true.
Blake says Douglass and his family lived in New Bedford for about 5 years. He would return many times to visit. He also eventually lectured at the Newport Opera House on Truro Square and maintained his friendship with the Rice family. Recently, Rice descendants who still own the home found a letter from Douglass in a bundle of family papers. It was written in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. The letter begins, "These are stormy days." In a surprise turn of fate, Blake found that she, too, has a connection to Frederick Douglass.
These are my abolitionist ancestors, William and Amelia Piper. So here I am, I'm an educator. I'm researching, and what happens? I come across my own family's names in papers, in letters that Frederick Douglass wrote.
Blake's great-great-great-grandparents were also conductors on the Underground Railroad along Abolition Row.
We're proud of that. And we're proud of a number of the abolitionists who worked very hard to end the whole oppressive system of enslavement.
Right across the street from the Johnson home, construction is now underway on Abolition Row Park, and at its heart will be a statue of Frederick Douglass. The statue depicts Douglass in his waterfront working clothes and will bear his quote, "Truth, justice, liberty, and humanity will ultimately prevail." The same words inscribed on the Senate chamber walls of the Massachusetts State House. What do you want people to feel when they go to the new Abolition Row Park?
I want them to see how civically engaged people were and use that as an example for them to move forward and be engaged. Be engaged in saving our democracy, because that's what those people were doing, and we're still fighting for our democracy.
For more on Douglass's life and the role he played in securing the right to freedom for African Americans, you can watch Oscar-nominated filmmaker Stanley Nelson's documentary, Becoming Frederick Douglass, streaming now on Rhode Island PBS Passport.